If you thought creating a Shopify store was easy, creating a WooCommerce store is even easier. The free version of WooCommerce is very easy to install via the WordPress dashboard. What you want to do is log in, click on plugins, and then add new. And then where it says search plugins, you type in WooCommerce. And then enter. And you can see it shows it here, WooCommerce by Woo Themes. And then you simply click here where it says install now. And then click where it says activate plugin. It takes you through to this page, and this is the setup page. You can actually skip the setup if you want, although it's a good idea to just simply click here on let's go and then follow the instructions. And it takes you through to this page, the page setup. And this is where WooCommerce will add 4 pages to your WordPress site in order for it to work properly. And let me scroll down a bit here. Those pages are shop, and this is the shop page where you'll display your products. Cart, this is the shopping cart page. Checkout, pretty self-explanatory, and my account, and this is where registered customers will be able to manage their account details and view past orders. And it says here at the bottom, once created, these pages can be managed from your admin dashboard. So let's click here on continue. Then you want to have your store locale set up. And this is going to vary, obviously, depending on where you are in the world. They want to know where your store is based, the currency that you're going to use, which unit should be used for product weights, and which unit should be used for product dimensions. And it'll probably take this from your IP address from where your hosting is. So, of course, if your hosting is in a different country to where you are actually based, you might need to change these, but it's quite simple. You can just simply change them from the drop-down menu here and so on. And if you deal in a different currency, you can change it here. Again, all sorts of different currencies that you've got here. So it's fully customizable. I'm going to leave all these at the default settings and click here on continue. Now it wants to know about shipping and tax. Now, if you're selling a physical product, then yes, you want to check this box that says, yes, I will be shipping physical goods to customers. And if you're going to be charging sales tax, you want to check this box here, yes, I will be charging sales tax. Obviously, this depends on where you are. In countries in the EU, there are thresholds as to whether or not you have to charge VAT. So if you're not reaching that threshold, then you don't need to charge VAT, so you can leave this box unchecked. If you're in the US and you have to charge sales tax based on your location, on the state that you live in, or the town or city, then obviously you would need to check this box as well. So let's just check this box, yes. And then you want to know how you're going to enter the product prices, whether they're going to be inclusive of tax or exclusive of tax. In the UK and most EU countries, the prices are inclusive of tax. So I'm going to check that radio button. In the US, of course, most prices are exclusive of tax, so you need to keep this radio button checked. Then they'll want to know your country, state if you're in the US or Australia, and the tax rate. And as you can see here in the UK, our VAT rate is an eye-watering 20%. So that's all set up. So I'm now going to click here on continue. Next step is to set up payments. And it comes with a couple pre-installed, PayPal and Stripe. But you can also take additional payment methods, although there is an extra charge for the extra plugin. you can take PayPal, check payments, backs transfer, or cash on delivery. I suspect most people who are watching this video will probably want to accept PayPal, so let's check that. Now you want to enter your PayPal email address in here and then click on here for continue. And once that's done, you can choose whether or not you want WooCommerce to collect non-sensitive diagnostic data and usage information. I'm going to click no thanks. And then that's it. You can create your first product by clicking on this button here. When you go back to the WordPress dashboard, you'll find that there's now a couple of extra tabs here at the side. You've got your WooCommerce tab where you've got your orders, coupons, reports, settings, system status, and add-ons. And you've also got your products. You can add a product, categories, tags, etc. In fact, if I click on add a product, you can see that the page and the procedure are very similar to the Shopify sales page and add a product, etc. that we looked at in the last video. One of the great things about WooCommerce is that they do come with a lot of support. And if you go to support.woothemes.com, it takes you through to this page here. There's a knowledge base. You can search for answers if you're having a problem. It also has a very extensive video tutorial series that you can access from within this page. You've got documentation. There's quite a strong community because it is very well used. And also you've got things like troubleshooting tips and a whole lot of other stuff as well. And it's well worth a visit to this site because it can provide you with an awful lot of information. Now that you have your store, you're probably excited to start designing it and selling it. Creating websites using these kinds of tools is a lot of fun because all the technical stuff is done for you. All you need to worry about is choosing the themes that you like the look of, deciding what colors to use, etc., etc. But don't get too carried away. While it's true that you can have a lot of fun here, remember that the end objective is to sell more items. And that means you need to think carefully about the layout and design of your site. And specifically, you need to make sure that it's designed in a way that will encourage sales. This in turn comes down to a number of consideration and design choices. If you were the manager of a high street store or a supermarket, then a big part of your job would be to decide how to lay out all of the products in that store so that they would sell optimally. This means getting people to walk through specific aisles in order to find the best sellers, thereby being exposed to other products they might be interested in but hadn't considered. In other words, the way you set out a brick and mortar store can end up having a big impact on the number of sales you make, and this comes down to basic psychology. Of course, there aren't quite as many factors for you to consider if you're going to be selling products online, but there are still some ways that you can influence the decisions of your buyers. Now, here are just a few things to keep in mind. One very important consideration for your store is the security and the barriers to sale. Remember, right at the start of the series, we discussed the growth of e-commerce and why it hasn't already grown beyond brick and mortar sales. The reason? Well, people are still concerned about spending money online. If you want to sell to the broadest range of people possible, you need to ensure your site looks official and trustworthy. This is why it's so important to use a professional-looking design and to create a professional-looking brand with a high-quality logo. Something as simple as a low-resolution image, a typo, or copyright 2010 can make your website look less trustworthy and cause people to leave. Another way to overcome this barrier to sale is to let people leave reviews on your store. This is something many people will be nervous to do, seeing as it can potentially mean people end up leaving bad reviews. But overall, letting people leave reviews means your customers can see other people have bought from you and received your products. If you respond to negative reviews, this will also reassure your customers that you're listening and that you care about what they have to say. Another barrier to sale is the time and effort involved in making a purchase. Believe it or not, this is actually a big deal, and surveys show that people are much less likely to buy from a store if they need to set up an account first. If you want to sell as much as possible, then you need to make the process of buying from you as streamlined and simple as possible. Amazon does this incredibly well with its buy with one click system. But even if you were to mimic something like this for your site, your visitors might still be required to create an account the first time they shopped with you, which could mean having to input their card details, their delivery address, etc., etc. Again, try to make all this as simple as possible to make sure it isn't off-putting for your visitors. For example, one thing you can do is to use PayPal to handle your checkout process. This can help people feel more secure shopping from your site. They don't have to input their details. And it makes it a lot easier for them to buy from you. POS stands for point of sale, and it's a concept that relates to the barrier to sale that we were just talking about. In a high street store, you'll often find something called point of sale display. This is a display that will promote and sell a cheap product while people are waiting in the queue. You've no doubt encountered these before, and that's because they work. The thing to understand is that when someone has made the decision to buy from you, they will already have made that important psychological step that turns them into a prospective buyer. Prior to this point, they're still umming and ahhing about whether they want to bother setting up an account or whether they want the guilt of spending money. Once they're checked out, they've already gone through the hard bit. Convincing someone to add something small to their order now is actually relatively easy and means you can increase your profits further. Of course, you don't have a queue online, so your point of sale is the checkout page. That's why you'll often find sites offering to add extras to your order, things like gift wrapping for a small fee. On an unrelated note, you also need to think carefully about the color scheme and palette of your e-commerce site design. What's key to understand here is that different colors can have different effects on your customers. For example, the colors red and orange actually make people feel slightly more impatient and have even been shown to elevate the heart rate. People very often find red color schemes somewhat uncomfortable, and this can be used to your advantage. For example, this is actually the reason that a lot of fast food joints are red or orange in their color scheme. The uncomfortable color palette means that people don't quite feel comfortable to spend a long time eating, and this means that the store can accommodate a higher turnover of customers and make more profit as a result. And likewise, it turns out that if a buy now button is red, it becomes more likely to be clicked more regularly. Conversely, though, if you want people to take their time to explore your site in a sort of more leisurely manner, then you need to make sure that you use cool and relaxing colors, like blues. Also important is to make sure that your color scheme allows you to use contrast. In other words, you need to avoid making your color palette too bright and your layout too busy. If you do that, it'll be impossible to draw attention to anything. Your aim is to make sure you can control the attention of your visitors and to get them to look at the products you're interested in selling. If everything is red and moving, then people won't know where they should be looking. In the last video, we talked about the impact that design has on your ability to sell. But this is actually only one of the tricks that you have up your sleeve. Also available is your ability to alter the pricing and to add smart descriptions to your store. This can not only make your items more affordable and therefore increase the number of people who can and will spring the cash for them, but it can actually have a range of subtle psychological effects as well. Let's talk about some pricing strategies. And a good one is special offers and deals, or also scarcity. And a special offer is a great way to encourage more people to buy your products. And if you price this offer correctly, then the increase in turnover should also help to increase your profits. In other words, you might lose out on each individual item, but by selling more items, you can still increase overall earnings. But special offers and deals also have another effect. They introduce time pressure. People know offers last only for a finite amount of time, and thus, by introducing special offers and deals, you'll automatically make people want to buy more quickly instead of going away to think about it. This in turn is very valuable for you. Why? Because people are most likely to buy things when they act impulsively. People buy most of the time based on emotion, not reason. So if you can get them to act quickly, they'll be much more likely to spend the cash than if you give them time to go away and mull it over. By using an incentive to act faster, you thereby make them act more quickly and act more impulsively. And as such, they'll be much more likely to buy from you. Another way to make your audience act quicker is to make the products limited in stock. This creates scarcity, and in doing that, in turn, also makes your items more valuable and thus desirable. People want things that no one else can have. We talked about color contrast earlier and making your products physically stand out on your digital shelf. But there's another type of contrast to consider too, and that's the contrast between your price points. Whether we like it or not, our brains tend to automatically judge the value of something by comparing and contrasting it with other things. Something expensive only seems expensive, often, insofar as it is expensive compared to other things. What this means is that you can easily make something look a lot more affordable by putting it next to something very expensive. And at the same time, doing this can also help make the expensive items seem more premium and thereby luxury and desirable. And furthermore, this means you'll have more luck selling point of sale options and upselling when the customer is already spending more. When someone is spending $500 on your website, they won't think much about adding $10 extra for a discounted product. But if they're only spending $5, then they'll be unlikely to want to add another $10 to the order. Think about this when choosing what to upsell and how to utilize POS. Another option is to let your customers create their own bundles. Now, bundling essentially means that your customers can choose precisely which items they want and which ones they don't need, and thereby they can save money by buying in bulk but not ending up with items that they don't want. Bundling is very effective because it ensures that you have at least one option for every type of buyer. At the same time, it makes people feel as though they're getting a better deal while actually encouraging them to spend more in your store. It's a genuine win-win scenario. When pricing your products, you might decide to include a high ticket item that will land you a large amount of profit per sale. The aim is that just a couple of sales of this item will be enough to keep you in profit, and in this regard, you might actually use your other products in order to encourage sales of those high ticket items. For example, if you sell a lot of expensive products, consider adding something cheap so your customers can get used to shopping with you in a low risk manner. This way, you can overcome the barrier to sale so that all you have left to do is encourage your visitors to spend the money on that product. Another thing that can make a big difference is the way you write descriptions for your products. Here, your objective is to make sure that people act on impulse and are moved to spend money right there and then rather than going away to think about it. To that end, good persuasive writing for sales will need to focus on the emotional aspect of the product, and this means that you're going to emphasize the value proposition. A value proposition basically describes how a product will improve someone's life. In other words, don't just look at the sum of the parts, but what people actually want to gain from spending the money. For example, people don't buy dumbbells because they need something heavy. People buy dumbbells because they want to be strong, toned, healthy, attractive, and confident. This is what you need to emphasize in your pitch because it will ensure that your prospective customers start imagining what life could be like after they've purchased your item. Meanwhile, try to get people to imagine what your product will be like to own. Companies like Apple always use words like feel and touch a lot, and emphasize how quickly they can get their hands on it. Finally, there's split testing. We've seen how color, layout, and even wording can improve the effectiveness of your store and help you to get more sales. If you get all this right, then you'll be improving your optimization to increase conversions. But the question is how to know if everything that you're doing is working. And to ask that question, you can use something called split testing. This basically means creating two different listings for the same product, one using a red font, for example, and one using a blue font. You then observe how each listing performs over time and ultimately compare the results to see which design got the most sales. Once you have your answer, you adopt the winning change, and this way you can evolve your site over time until it's perfectly optimized to convert the highest percentage of visitors possible into paying customers. If you took on board everything we covered in the last video, then you should now have an online store that's highly effective at converting visitors into paying customers. You're drawing attention, making your products look desirable, and then maximizing the profits from each sale that you make. All that's left is to make sure as many people as possible are finding your website, and if you do this right, then your business will start to scale and you can invest more back into marketing. Here are some strategies you can use. Before you start spending money on adverts, SEO might be a better first port of call. SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization and is essentially the process of optimizing a website and link strategy so that your store is easy to find on Google when people search for it. To do this, you often begin by identifying a search term, otherwise known as a key phrase, such as buy hats online. Only you won't want to choose buy hats online because that will be very competitive and very difficult to rank for. This is why it's such a good idea to have a particular target audience and a particular type of product. Remember how we discussed selling brightly colored shirts? Well, brightly colored shirts is likely a key phrase that people look for, but which isn't quite as competitive. To start ranking for this term, you need to ensure that you have a well-optimized website, meaning it's fast, mobile-friendly, and easy to navigate, and that you include the keywords you've selected in your descriptions and on your blog occasionally. Aim for around 1% density, so for every 100 words you can include the key phrase once. It's also useful to include it in headers and meta descriptions and then to try and build as many links as possible on relevant websites. Now, this might mean getting a fashion blog to link to you, for example. You might be able to do this by providing them with free content, which is called guest posting. And speaking of content marketing is also a fantastic tool you can use. This basically means you're running a blog and the aim is to get people to subscribe and to look for your site when they want information relevant to your industry. So if you sell gardening tools, you should have an authoritative blog on gardening that people can subscribe to. In doing this, you'll now have an audience that trusts your recommendations and that listens to what you say. You can now recommend them your own products and even provide them with special offers. Email marketing goes hand in hand with content marketing. Try to build the trust of your audience to the point where they're happy to hand over their contact details, then subtly sell your products to them. Building an audience for your blog is, of course, the tricky part, but you can do this by running a social media account and by using SEO. And speaking of social media, this can also be used to directly sell your products. One great way to do this is by promoting the value proposition and the lifestyle that your products support. So, if you want people to buy your fitness books, this might mean running an Instagram account that includes lots of pictures of you training in the gym. You can also use influencer marketing this way. Why not get a big Instagram star to post a photo with one of your products? You can even sell directly through several social media channels. Pinterest, for example, now lets you sell straight through your account, and so does Facebook if you use the right WooCommerce plugin or Shopify plugin for your page. Don't be afraid to ask your friends to share your page and your special offers either. Note that with both content marketing and social media, the main objective is to provide value. If you don't do that, people won't follow you and you won't have an audience to sell to. PPC is pay-per-click marketing. This is an excellent tool for getting more sales, but it costs money. Basically, these platforms charge you only when someone clicks on an advert. This means that if the adverts don't work, then you won't be charged anything. You can set a minimum cost per click, though the more you're willing to spend, the more your advert will show up in competitive niches. The biggest ad platforms for PPC are Google AdWords, meaning your advert appears on Google, and Facebook ads. And they must work. Amazon spends up to $1 million a day on AdWords. And particularly useful is the remarketing feature of AdWords that lets you advertise products that people have previously considered buying back to your old visitors when they're on other sites. There's so much more to running a successful e-commerce business, but a lot of it you'll learn as you go. Hopefully, though, you're feeling inspired enough now to jump in and start giving it a go. This is a fantastic way to earn money online, and as we've seen, there are countless small tricks and techniques you can use to accelerate your sales and increase your earnings. The potential is limitless, and it's only going to grow as e-commerce becomes more and more widely accepted. To recap then and set you off, just follow these simple steps. Step number 1. Decide what kind of business you will be running. Is this something you're adding to your existing high street store? Or are you designing a store to run as a side business while you continue with your current employment? Step number 2. Choose a type of product, choose a type of niche, and choose an audience. Think about how you'll create and procure your products, but also think about the amount of competition you'll face and the key phrases that you'll come up against. Step number 3. Create your website and add an e-commerce platform. Use WordPress and either WooCommerce or Shopify for the majority of scenarios. Step number 4. Start adding themes and plugins and think about how you're going to lay out your site. And finally, step number 5. Begin marketing your site through social media and with a blog. Reinvest the profits in more stock and more marketing, and keep a close eye on what's working. Rinse and repeat these steps, and before you know it, you'll be able to start expanding your operations. Next step, well, buying your own warehouse, but that's a topic for another video.